Today I'm taking a 10 kilogram of Silverside steak and turning it into meals for our family. Cutting it down into mince, steak, stir-fry strips and even a little bit of fat for rendering. This is part of our journey towards feeding our family with purpose, stretching every resource and learning as we go. This was actually my first ever attempt at breaking down a cut like this. I'm not a trained butcher and I know some of my cuts probably aren't perfect, but I didn't let that stop me. I chose to step in, learn hands-on and grow a skill that serves my family. So if you've ever held back because you're afraid of not doing it right, let this be your sign to just start. Here's the Silverside roast or steak, just under 10 kgs of beef. It's an affordable, versatile cut, and with a bit of time and a sharp knife, you can actually do a lot with it. I prepped a few clean workspaces across the kitchen, grabbed the sharpest knife I have, and set up my Taurus machine to make the mince. And then I went back to the cutting board to cut up some cubes so that I can use that in the mincer, in the Taurus machine. But with the kids that decided to start helping out, I needed to cube this meat quite quick. Moving the meat piece over to the next cutting station, I decided to cut on my kitchen table. And here I am cutting the meat into cubes so that I can give it to the kids to mince for us. And it was quite an adventure for all of us. This was also the first time that my kids ever worked with meat in such a fashion. So while I was cutting the meat, my son was standing on the chair and chatting to me about what I'm doing and why I am doing this, and I'm trying to educate him with regards to why we are creating our own or making our own meat for the house. I decided to take off the fat pieces on the meat while I was cutting it into cubes, just because I thought that the machine would get stuck with the fat. After cutting up all the meat into the cubes, I then decided to give this to the kids to start mincing the meat for us. And boy, what fun they had. They enjoyed it so much. It was both my son, who is 3 years old, Zian, and then my daughter, Lele, who is 7 years old. So this was practically their homeschooling for the morning before we started on other work for school. I first taught them how to mince meat. And while they were still busy with the mince machine, I then had to go back to the cutting board. I immediately decided to start cutting off the excess fat that was on the meat. And so here you can see me starting to shave off the excess fat so that we do not have a lot of fat on our steaks, which I wanted to cut. And this is me trying to get the fat off the meat. I do not know if I'm doing this correctly. As I said, it's my first time doing it, and there weren't any real YouTube tutorials I could watch. So this is hands-on learning for me at this stage, where I just try to cut as much fat off as possible without cutting excess meat as well. And of course, not cutting my own fingers or hands in the process. So this was quite tricky with the wooden board shuffling around on the zinc, and me trying to get the fat off the meat. But eventually I got it done, and I'm super proud of myself for doing this. So once all the fat or most of the fat have been trimmed off, I decided that it was time to start cutting the meat into steak pieces, but I'm contemplating at this stage how to do that exactly, and then just decided to go for it. Whatever happens is going to happen anyway. So I cut it into half and then decided to do steaks of each half of the meat pieces. So my method to madness for cutting this large piece of meat into half was that if I didn't do this, the steaks would be too large, and I do not want portion-wise that large steak. So I just cut it into half and then decided to work with one half and then the other half. Feeling more comfortable, I then dug my knife into the meat and started cutting some slices of steak. And I have to say that I think I cut it a little bit too thick, but who cares, because maybe we like thick steak. But we will know once we eat them. And here I am trying my best to stay as straight as possible while cutting the steak, and I will then be moving it over to another station where I will package them into Ziploc bags. So this is just me trying to figure out if I am doing it correctly, and I am checking my steak thickness to see if this is what I want, and I am checking how will the steak be put into the Ziploc bags, how many I'll be adding. This is everything that's going on in my head while I'm trying to cut this steak up. But alas, before I actually knew it, the steak was cut into pieces and I was ready to start on the next half of the steak to cut more pieces, and I was actually quite surprised at how many pieces of steak I could get from this one half of the Silverside. And then the last pieces of steak I tried to cut and then realized, oh, I could just cut it in half like that. And next time I will be doing this instead of trying to cut through that top piece and the bottom piece. So here I am just cutting. After my realization, I just started cutting some more steaks, and then the excess meat I decided to turn into a little bit of stir fry. So while I was cutting up this, I realized that some of the meat will be excess meat and some fat that is left over. So I decided to cut it into stir fry strips and then make a few stir fry packages as well for our meat for the month. Once I finished cutting the stir fry meat, I decided it's time to start packaging all of the meat into Ziploc bags, and here I am just dividing these stir fry pieces into bags, and then I am weighing my bags because I know that we eat about approximately 500 grams to 750 grams of meat per meal, and this is why I am trying to get it to almost that specific weight before I am putting it away. And for convenience, I have stickers that I write the grams on and then just put it onto the Ziploc bag so that I know exactly how much meat is in each package. When I want to make some food, then I know what I have and what I need to add. If there is a little bit less meat than 500 grams in a packet, then I know I need to add some more fruits or veggies or fruits or just some potatoes or some extra rice or whatever the case may be. It just depends on what I am making for that evening. And then I decided to add about 2 to 3 pieces of steak per bag because I realized when I weighed my first bag that the steaks are quite thick and they are quite close to 500 to 750 grams per package. So I just decided to go for 2 to 3 in a Ziploc bag, and it all depends on how big the steaks are. Some of the steaks were smaller in size, so I decided to add two large ones with one small one, or maybe one small with one large. It all depends. What I love about this is that it depends on what your family eats and how you eat. So you can package the Ziploc bags with all the details for your specific meals according to your preferences for your family. Because our family loves good spaghetti and mince, or I love to create some homemade hamburger patties or even meatballs, I decided to cut a lot of the meat up into mince bag. And this is me and my son. We decided to start putting the mince into bags, and he is assisting me while I am the one that weighs. He's the one that's trying to put it into the Ziploc bags. So we are working together as a team, and I am teaching them the valuable life lesson of creating your own food from a big bulk 10 kg of Silverside. I am showing them how to cut it up, how to create mince, and my daughter here has decided to come and join us, so she will also be assisting us in just getting all the mince into Ziploc bags. And that is it. There I have my first 700 grams of mince. That is super lean mince because there's not a lot of fat in the mince. I didn't add any fat, I just added the fat that was on the Silverside, and there's excess fat as well that I have just frozen with the purpose of then rendering it out into a little bit of beef tallow that I can use in my house instead of sunflower cooking oil. This was such a fun experience with my kids. I think they will definitely remember this for the rest of their lives, and I will definitely remember this first time. I am definitely doing this again, and it was so satisfying to do, and the end result was just amazing. At the end of this video, I will show you exactly how much of what we actually got out. So once everything was packaged into the Ziploc bags and there were stickers on, and I added all the grams per bag, I then started to close all of the bags so that I could actually see what I have and how much of my meat I cut up into what pieces. So this was a fun experiment, and this was also fun to see exactly what I could achieve with the 10 kgs of Silverside meat, what the end result is of cutting up meat yourself at home. This is about 3.7 kgs of steaks that I cut out, 1.3 kgs of stir fry, and then I have another just over 4 kgs of mince that I did, and there was about 370 grams of fat. At ZA Homestead, we believe in using what we have, honoring what God provides, and feeding our family with purpose. This one simple task saves us money, reduces waste, and builds skills that strengthen our self-sufficiency. If this video encouraged you to try something new, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone on their own homesteading journey. And don't forget to grab our free meal planning template linked in the description below. It will help you to make the most of what you've got.